This is my computer, and although it's got some RGB fans and a whole bunch of Intel stickers on it, I think that it's a little bit too boring. So what we're going to do today is open it up, and in here we're going to build a model airport because, you know, it's an aviation channel. I've already made this little cutout which fits perfectly in here. So what we're going to do is create a copy of Edinburgh Airport. It's going to be 3 gates in total, and I'm going to put it inside my computer because I'm bored. Why did I choose Edinburgh Airport? Well, that's because it's my home airport, so that's the only reason. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the sketch that I made. I'm going to show you which section I picked to put onto this piece. This is Edinburgh Airport, and we're going to be building these 3 gates here. So if we take a little closer look, it's these 3 gates. Now what we've already gone ahead and done is gone into a document, and I've sketched out all the lines that are going to need to be drawn. Speaking of, this one needs to be extended a little bit. There we go. So this way, once I draw a line, I can tick it off and I know that I've done it already. And this is another sketch. So you can see the exact section that I've taken. It's going to be 3 gates, and I chose the sections because there's all 3 jet bridges, quite a few gates. I think it's just got the most populated section of the airport that it doesn't have wide body gates, because obviously they're not going to fit inside of my computer. And also from here I might be able to get away with putting in the control tower as well onto this section here, but that's for a future me to deal with. In the meantime, I need to go get my paint pens out and get to work on this section. Okay, so now it's time for a voiceover, because otherwise this will take about an hour. So I'm just starting off with the road that's on the left. If I remember, I'm going to put a little screenshot of what I'm working with, and I'll put arrows to which section I'm currently doing. So at the beginning I was actually trying to measure stuff, and that took quite a while. So about here is when I gave up on actually measuring and just went freehand for all of it. I'm still using the ruler just to get straighter lines, but there's no measuring involved. There's just like rough estimates, except for the positioning of the gate lines, the taxi lines. Those are roughly measured out just so that everything's spaced out correctly and the aircraft can actually fit. Here, this is the road that's on the left. I'll put an arrow up to it. Now I'm testing my yellow paint pen because I had issues, as you can see. That's the one. I did find one that worked, so that's what I'm going to be using, but you'll see in the future that that one also decided to not work for me. Here I'm just measuring where the gates are going to be. I'm also testing out my black pen just to make sure that it does work and that the yellow will stick on top of it, which it does, so we're all good. This is the main gate, and there's also a side taxiway on the same one. This is the same on the second gate, which I'm going to be adding, which I'm just going to be measuring out now. And there's also a third gate, but that one only has 1 taxiway. I'm going to be extending the gates a little bit further down, just because I miscalculated or something, or I just didn't like how it looked, so I moved them down a little bit. So now I'm just measuring out the 3rd gate, off screen annoyingly, but oh well. Here we go. The gate is quite close to the right, but the aircraft does still fit. I do bring in a test aircraft in a little bit, possibly even, right now, just to make sure that everything still fits correctly. And here's where I decide to increase the length of the taxiway. Now this is where the jet bridge goes in this box. It's quite difficult to see on the Google Maps. I had to use satellite view to kind of go around and see that it does go under the building. Like there's some roads under, and it's quite difficult to see what's actually under, but I think I got it quite accurate. So there's this yellow circle which I'm going to have to wait to dry before I can continue doing anything. This is a passenger walkway, and this bit just surrounds the gate. There is a road that goes behind this passenger pathway, but obviously that's not going to fit because there's cutouts for the cables there. This section here though is a road, I believe. I have no idea what these lines are for. I guess they're like parking spaces for fuel trucks or something. I'm not really sure, but they are on the map, so I'm just gonna put them over here. Now this yellow circle is dried where the jet bridge rests when it's not in use, and around it just go a bunch of these white lines, I'm guessing, just so that other vehicles don't park in the area. I'm using my test aircraft to make sure that it does all still look good and I haven't messed anything up. Now we're drawing the second section, the second jet bridge. This part I did mess up a little bit. I'll point out my mistake in a bit when I notice it. This is another one of them yellow circles. This is, I believe, where the wheels of the jet bridge go when it's not being used, so quite important. I also extended out the diagonal taxiway so that it was at least somewhat equal length to the other one. Yeah, you can see there I made a little mistake. I made that section a bit too long, so I just ended up cutting it off, just rubbing it out. So moving on over here, this yellow circle is dried, and this is where my mistake is. That line should not have been connected to the diagonal. There's a little straight section here which I should have drawn in, which I didn't, and that diagonal line doesn't actually exist. But I think I managed to save that quite well. Over here's a little parking space for service vehicles and another road. This is another mistake I made here. I connected the road up to the passenger walkway, but very quickly noticed that mistake and somewhat decently fixed it. Once again, this is going in a PC case with tempered glass, which is darkened, so you're not going to see quite a lot of it anyway. But it's good to make sure these details are correct. This is where the third jet bridge is going to go. Just around it goes another passenger path, so I'm drawing that in first. Then I'm going to be bringing in my test aircraft to make sure that the jet bridge block kind of extends long enough as it just goes next to the engines, and it made sense just to do it that way instead of measuring it. This is the gate kind of outline again, just goes around a little parking space. I'm just waiting for the yellow circle to dry, and then I'm going to be putting in those final lines. In the meantime, I'm just drawing the road out a little bit further back. Originally I wasn't going to do this, but I decided that it would probably look better. This is another passenger walkway which I've missed my first pass, as it goes underneath the jet bridge, which is really difficult to see, especially from the top-down view that I was referencing. That's that road continued. I'm also now drawing in the black sections of the zebra crossings. I'm doing this first just so it can dry before I use my white pen, so I don't ruin it. Originally that was going to be a curved arrow, but I kind of messed it up, so now it's a straight arrow. Then this is that road, this kind of pattern on the road, which is a little bit too big, but it is quite difficult to get them on a smaller scale. On such a small scale, this is 1 to 400, so it's going to look like that. I think it still turned out pretty well. This is just a few more details on the roads which I could add. That speed limit is actually in one of the big gaps, but I decided to move it just to add a little bit of detail to that area. That bottom left thing is one of them little stop triangles which has been cut off because, well, it doesn't fit. Now I'm going to be drawing in all the final lines for the taxiways and these yellow boxes that go in front of the gates. There's also a couple of these hash pieces. I'll move the camera in a bit closer and you can see that I spilled yellow paint everywhere because the paint pen decided to explode on me again, but managed to clean it up quite well, and I think that section turns out quite well, especially from a distance, like how it's going to be viewed. There's another one that goes in between these two gates. I'm not sure what it's for because none of the other gates have it, but here it is, and it does add quite a lot of detail. It does look really good and stands out against the white and grey and black kind of everything else. So happy that it's there, even though I don't know what it's for. Now I'm adding the inner yellow lines that go on the taxiways, because it's a yellow line surrounded by black to contrast. But it's easier to draw the black line and then put a yellow line inside. Another thing that I do want to add to this are these little lampposts that I purchased for my main airport. And these actually do fit very nicely underneath the graphics card. So I think it'll be quite cool to put those in the corresponding places. So I believe there's one here. They don't look quite like the lamps on Edinburgh Airport, but I think it'll still be really cool to have little lights going across. So I believe there's one here and another one around here. And hopefully, I haven't actually tried this yet, but hopefully they'll give a nice glow, because otherwise it's going to be quite dark. But before we do that, this line has now dried sufficiently, so we can grab the ruler again. What we can actually also do is clean off all the other paint and stuff that's under it now. Make it a little bit easier for me to see what I'm doing. Okay, I believe here's fine. And then we can start by filling in some sections of the line with white. Perfect. And that's the main markings complete. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing... I might put in lines here, but I believe if I remember correctly, the pencil didn't do particularly well, and I don't... Actually, you can see it. I'll consider it, because obviously with the dark, the kind of like the tinted front panel, it's going to be really difficult to see anything going on in here. So that's why I'm kind of not keen on putting that in. But it is something I'll think about. In the meantime, I need to find the locations of the lights. So there's one here. One there. There is one there. And then there's a third one, which is there. So we're going to drill out holes so that we can install these little tiny lamps above the aircraft, and hopefully it's going to look really good. Okay, so I've gone ahead and drilled the holes for the 3 lights which are going to be installed. So there's one here. These aren't quite like the lights you would actually find at the airport, but that still looks pretty good. And I just want to quickly check that they do actually fit underneath my graphics card. This is what it's going to look like once it's actually installed properly, and that looks really funny. But now what we need to do is figure out how to actually get power to these lights. Now what I want to do is use these, oh, please focus, there we go, I'll just zoom in, use those USB headers and just take 5 volts from them and use that to power the lights, which I think is a reasonable solution. So I'd actually use I'm not sure if that's a USB header, but I'll use that one just because it's easier to get underneath, and then all the rest of the electronics I'll just keep in this hole here. So let me go figure out how I'm going to wire everything. So my intentions for powering these lights is through the USB headers on the motherboard itself. So for that, I've got these two wires which I can plug into those USB headers, into the 5 volts and into the ground. But these are obviously too short, so what I need to do now is cut and solder on these extra wires. So let's get that done. So another voiceover time because I'm here. If you caught a glimpse of that iPod, that's why there's an iPod shaped burn mark on my soldering mat and, well, piece of wood. I was actually burning the skull pattern in it. You can check out some photos of it on this Instagram. It's in the description. So I'm just connecting all the wires that are going to be going to the 5-volt power source and putting some heat shrink on it so that they don't make contact with the metal case, because that could end quite badly. Here I'm also putting all the wires of the lights together. Originally I did this in series, which turned out pretty bad. There wasn't enough current, so all the lights were quite dim. I'm now doing them all in parallel, which did in fact make a difference, but I may have forgotten to put in a resistor the first time around and fried all 3 of them and had to redo it. I didn't record myself redoing it apparently, or at least I can't find the clip of that. So this is the one without the resistor, but I did in fact put a resistor in at the end. It did make the lights dimmer, but they're at least not broken. I am happy to announce that the lights actually do something now. They're bright enough to be effective. So now let's, I guess, try connecting it to the main 5-volt USB power supply and see if that still works. Overall, for a project which I made, I think this turned out really well. Even with the reflections of the PC case, the glass, you can still make out the airport, and I think it looks really good. Obviously, this isn't the entire airport. There's still lots to do. I intend on having ground vehicles, like a terminal kind of layout in the back, and obviously the control tower here. So this is just episode 1, and if this video does well, and or I am bored again, I will be making a part 2 at some point, so subscribe if you want to see that. I'm going to leave you now. Instagram's in the description if you want to take a look. Yeah, alright, bye.